Hey everybody, Card Dreamer here, coming at you on behalf of D-Class and all things D-Class related. And today we are going to be doing a discussion about the prime focus is going to be on the Blizzard Activision lawsuit that's been going on, but there's going to be other context involved with it. And I'm going to be doing this discussion with
Demi-Human.
Wow, welcome. It's been a while. I tried to find a full human, but nobody was willing.
Well, hey, man, like I said, I've been dead, okay? I don't know what to tell you. I've been half dead, now I'm half alive. So,
It's
here we are.
same status, only, positive outlook.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Somebody understands me.
Yeah, but nobody wants to.
Yeah, that's the problem. Nobody wants to understand me, and then...
Because they realize it's not challenging.
Well,
Somebody
it's challenging.
Understand something. It's something they can be proud of. Like, wow, I figured this out. You're too simplistic. It's like
No, nobody wants to understand the dead half of me. Everyone wants to understand the alive half.
it's dead.
That's
You
the
moved
problem.
on.
Have I? I'm still here.
No, we have.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
He has too. Anyway, now that we got the jokes out of the way, this is actually pretty. This is a pretty broad topic. It's actually a pretty serious topic. So everybody knows what's been going on with Blizzard Activision. If you don't, look it up. I mean, really, come on, take 2 seconds. It's there. But in case you don't feel like doing that, you're too lazy. You're probably me. So I'll tell you. So basically, they've been getting the state, I believe, or the government is suing them because they did a 2-year investigation, and basically all the sexual harassment and discrimination, everything else has been going on basically at that company. I mean, one person actually killed themselves over it, and it's just been an atrocious place to work. And everything's been coming out. You've had tweets by current and former employees and so forth, and it's actually even spawned people at Ubisoft coming out as well. So it's not just Blizzard Activision, but Blizzard and Activision are kind of being made the example, like, okay, we're not tolerating this crap anymore. Which is good. I mean, I'm glad that, way too late, but the government is finally stepping up and like, screw you, this is happening. There's been a walkout, and basically a lot has come to a halt at Activision while a lot of people are gone. The reason I want to discuss this is not just because of what's going on. I mean, what's there really to say as far as the actual lawsuit goes that you aren't going to see on millions of other channels or read about? And it sucks. It sucks for the people who work there. There's not much more we really need to say about that, but I want to discuss more what it means for us as non-employees, like how we should approach, as gamers, should approach the situation. And I'm going to use Diablo 2 remasters coming out.
Yep.
And until this lawsuit came out, a lot of people were stoked for it. I want to argue a lot of people are still stoked for it. And it actually kind of bugs me. And it's something of a growth issue as a human, as people in general. Because I'm not perfect. I know a lot of people think I am. Let's just step back.
Who are these people? Hold on. Who are these people? We need to talk to these people. What are you talking about?
Okay, everybody knows I'm perfect, but that's pretend I'm not.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
No, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I want to talk. Basically, this is kind of leading into, for lack of a better way, materialism. Yeah. We as people are materialistic for the most part. There's people who are very giving and selfless, and props and respect for them who can live that. But majority of people, I would argue, to some degree or another, are materialistic based on their budget. Let's put it that way.
For sure.
I know people who are still like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get Diablo 2. I'm going to be doing this and this and this. And I'm like, I want the game still. I actually never played it. I've never played Diablo 2. So this was going to be my chance to play it. And I'm kind of wanted to step back. Like, as much as I want it, what does it mean when you buy it?
Yeah. No, honestly, and I think to that point, like the whole idea of materialism is there's so many things in our society that like we can sort of debate as to the like the humaneness of it, especially when it comes to the processing of it. And I think everybody makes their argument for whether it's clothing, food, video games, like whatever it is. But I think a lot of times it goes back to the whole concept of like ignorance is bliss. So I think in a lot of ways it's just like, okay, when it comes to being materialistic in a societal sense, it's just like, okay, well, as long as I'm getting the thing that I'm paying my money for, and I'm getting the thing that I wanted, there isn't really much for me to question unless I hear about it after the fact, or unless I hear about it in like beforehand. But I do think it does, like, your where you stand on that really gets tested once we find out that there's once we sort of get that Wizard of Oz moment where you sort of see behind the veil. And I think this is one of those situations where it's just like it's a tricky way to sort of to go about things, because at the end of the day, like, you are, I think on one hand, the purchases of these games is also representative of like where these companies make their money back, and then the money that is made then does go back to the employees. However, there's also realizing that like these companies and like we said before, it's not just about one company. I think a lot of companies, when you find out like the amount of work, the amount of stress that like the workers do, it's a challenge, because you're just like, do I want to be a part of this? Like, do I want to be that person that continues to fund a company that's not doing right by the people who are actually doing the work? So yeah, it's just a weird time to sort of think about like, how do I really approach this?
Yeah, exactly. And Blizzard's just the latest example kind of this. They're not the only company that you have that makes you have to question yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But they're the latest, and then this might even be one of the biggest. I know people who are still like looking forward to this game, and I get it. They're looking at it from, the problem is they're looking at it only from their own self gratification. What can I do for me? Not thinking, when you purchase that game, what are you saying? What's the message and the conditions you're making for everybody else involved? I had one person try to tell me it wasn't Blizzard in and of themselves making the game. They outsourced it to another studio. I'm like, why does that matter?
Yeah.
Blizzard still owns it. They own the property. They're still getting some money for it. It doesn't. Okay, great. So another studio those particular people may not have suffered, but the company, the overall umbrella is still getting finance to shelter those who are getting abused.
Exactly.
So if I were to purchase this game, to me, it's like telling the company, hey, take win or lose, I got you back. You abuse that person. I don't care. He don't mean nothing to me. Give me my. It's just, and any other day I could joke like that about work. It's funny because I'm saying this out loud and I'm like, man, I made just like these people don't mean nothing. It's funny, like, but I would never ever say, like, I don't joke in the way that about the situations that happened at Blizzard or anything like that, and I would never condone anything that they have done. Like it's horrible. I mean, they had one. They had they called their suite that they brought women back to, and they called it the Cosby Suite. I mean, how effed up?
Oh yeah.
So why would I want to support a company whose employees do that? And I should say their employees, their higher ups, I should say, because it's the higher ups that really are a lot to blame for it. I'm not saying there weren't some other regular employees that didn't do it, but all those involved, let's just put it that way, all those who were involved in the messed up behavior, why would I want to support the company that will shelter these people, deny that these things happen? Why do I want to when do you step back from your own wants and desires and from the material stuff and go, we need to make the world better? Like, as a single individual, my $50, $60, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
As a collective unit, though, as a group of consumers, we can make a difference then. If nobody gives them that money because of their stance on things, then they're forced to change, or they're forced to go bankrupt and close down, and a better company can take its place. Like,
Yeah.
but nobody's seen it. I haven't seen anybody really discuss that. I've seen people discuss the lawsuit, but not taking necessarily the stance of I'm not gonna buy this game.
Yeah, and I think it really comes down to what's to me more than anything, it's just like what is the intention behind it? Because I don't think for some people it may purely be selfish motivation. Someone might just say, okay, well, I don't necessarily have a hand in the work culture. At the end of the day, like, a person could say, well, if a person, like I said before, if a person is going to get paid from their job, then the only real way that money ends up circulating back into the company is for people to buy the game. So one could justifiably make that as their reasoning for still doing it. And some people could just be like, hey, I just want to buy the game. Like, I have nothing to do with what happens within the job. If it's something that the that company themselves have to work on, then I can then speak up about it. I can write about it, whatever it is, but it doesn't necessarily have to constitute that I decide not to buy the game altogether. And anybody could technically make that argument and justify it. However, I do think that, if, at least to me, it's one of those things that I would see it as, if employees are seeing this issue happen on a consistent basis, and from what we can gather, it's continued to go on, and the people in higher up situations have not done anything about it, then in order for them to really realize, hey, the gravity of this situation is that you guys are mistreating your workers in a way that like nobody's okay with, then to me the best course of action then is to really make them realize that this is something serious, and like you got to do something about it. Otherwise, from a money perspective, they're just like, oh well, we'll get to it when we get to it. Sales are still in a good spot. Nobody's complaining about it. We can sort of just go through our own internal HR resources, and then we'll sort of snuff out all the bad people, and they might just drag their feet with it. But if you see a legitimate backlash happening of, hey, like you gotta fix this, otherwise we can't like we can't support this at all, then I think it does push that forward. And I think to me that's probably that's just the most humane thing to do. If you're like, how much longer do you want to know that somebody is being essentially just disregarded as a legitimate employee, before you're just like, like we'll do something about it, but we're not in a rush to do it because we're not really affected by it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And I think you were kind of getting to that, or touched upon it a little bit. Like, yeah, you could make a case even for, yes, you're supporting this crap company, but there are innocents there who rely on a paycheck.
Exactly.
And I'm like, and I get that, but it's a tough one because, yeah, you don't want to see them without a paycheck, and one could easily say, well, they can just go on unemployment if the company closes. But I mean, unemployment in general, based on state or the government or federal government, like, it's not an easy thing to do. And there's always these hurdles. They can't just quit, because you don't get unemployment if you quit, depending on where you are. And, you got to find another job, and jobs are not the best. Hunting is still not the best right now. You can't just do a crap job to get fired, because then, depending on the reason you were fired, you still won't get unemployment. So it's kind of like you're into this no-win, but would they be happier on unemployment or happier at a job that's going through this kind of crap? And it's just really a no-win situation in general in the short run, but I feel like the long run, things would get better if the lesson was, or the point was made, that this type of behavior from corporations is not going to be tolerated. But it's not easy on anyone involved. And, like I said, I'm not, and I tried to say earlier, I'm not perfect. Like, I want this game. I want Diablo 2. I really do. But when, like, just as a person, when do you go step back and go, you know what? I don't need to feed my own. I have plenty I can spend my money on. I don't need this.
Yeah.
Even if you don't, like, let's say you don't have a lot of money. This is the one thing you were saving up for. Like, is your own gratification really worth it? Like, I just feel like more people, like, we really need to stand up and just start questioning ourselves. Like I said, I'm not perfect. There's plenty of times I'm like, I don't care what happened. And I was younger and really didn't pay attention to it. Like, I don't care. I got what I wanted. That's what mattered. Me. I don't care if they only make one. They can stop producing it after that. They just give me the one. I don't care. I've had that mentality in my past.
For sure.
And ironically, I'm going to use another example. This is a very older one, but we're not stupid. Somebody's done this. And even I've questioned it back then, but I probably didn't have the right mentality or point of view. I'm going to use Michael Jackson as an example. Think of all the allegations he had against him.
Yeah.
I mean, and you've had these people. This is why I always believed he was innocent. Do I question what he did in general? Yeah, because I don't think he thought about the present, how things look. I don't think he took into consideration the appearance of some of the things he was doing.
100%.
But I don't think he did anything he was accused of.
Yep.
Having said that, look at the people who he had his first allegation. And some people would even say, "Oh, he settled that in court. You know he's guilty. Why settle? Fight it."
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes people just settle because it's just cheaper than going through the court process. You don't want to blow all your money. Some people are like, it's just not worth the aggravation. It's not worth the just pay them off.
Exactly.
I don't necessarily always agree with that. I think it's sometimes worth spending the extra money to send the message, I'm not going to be a pushover. Come at me and I'll take you down. But that's a whole, neither here nor there. The point is, he had his allegation. He had the reputation now. Michael Jackson, he did this. There are people who believe he did it. The same people, some of the same people. I find it hard to believe. You know what? No, let me reverse this and retract. People who knew he had his reputation. You had the type of a-holes who still dropped their kids off with him with the intent of purposely creating another lawsuit. Oh, he has a reputation. He did that once. He supposedly got in trouble to do it again. Let's make this a serial thing. Let's make this a continuing thing. Then he'll have a pattern. And then, he keeps doing it. So obviously he's guilty. And it just becomes easier and easier to get paid off. It's for easy money for them. But that's still kind of sidetracking. But the whole reason I'm bringing him up, think of the people who really did believe he did it.
Yeah.
But still bought his albums.
Yeah.
And I mean, why? And then it becomes a question of when do you separate the artist from the art?
100%. I think that's a.
And there used to be at one point I believed you don't separate, or I used to believe you should separate them.
Mm-hmm.
Now my stance has kind of changed. Well, you shouldn't separate them because regardless if you like the piece or not, why would you support everything it represents?
Exactly, and I think the debate for a lot of people is that can we make the argument and the justification that this piece of art fully represents who that person is? Because again, I mean, the people who in the same way will make the justification for Michael Jackson, and even for a the people who make that justification will also say that there's with not just with Michael Jackson, but I'll use another example with R. Kelly. That one was a bit different because of the fact that they went ahead and then made a whole documentary, and then you found out that a lot of the stuff that was going on was true, and you were seeing people who, even after everything that was going on, were still supporting him. And
that's another good example because as far as he made stuff way after those things came out and he was selling. I couldn't fathom it. Why? That's actually really good. That's probably a better, more recent example than even Michael Jackson. I just didn't think about it.
But I think even with that, it's just again, you can make the same argument, and people will justify it and say, oh well, one, it's my money, I can do whatever I want with it, yada yada yada, and then the other justification, and the more I guess the more justifiable one is just okay, well, if I'm actually taking the time to look at what goes into making this thing, this person's not the only one that's involved in it. There are other people that help in that process, and to then not patronize it is to then essentially cut off the money resources for the, let's just say, the producer, whoever did whatever, like whoever did all these other things. I'm not it doesn't seem fair that nobody else gets paid just because this one person is a bad person, um or they did some questionable things, whatever. And I think even with that though, it turns into a case of just like, I can slightly understand it, but at the end of the day, like, are we, again, going back to the idea, are we going to patronize somebody to the point where it's almost facilitating their bad behavior? Because unless you stop that, like, unless the person doesn't see that, like, what they're doing gets backlash to it, then what's the reason for them to change? Like, if people kept buying, people kept buying R. Kelly albums, and he had the money to be able to go on tour, to find more girls, to do whatever. So I think at the end of the day, it's one of those things that, like, what's your motivation behind what you're doing? Like, are you doing it in because you actually want to help whoever, or are you just doing it because you just want to do what you want? And are you okay with then saying, okay, well, you may not directly do it, but you're indirectly sort of facilitating the 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 person, um, to just do whatever it is they want to do. And I think when you think about it like that, then you're just like, I don't know if I can separate it, because that really does, um, play a huge part in what's going to change and what isn't.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. Like, you're basically, it's kind of like, I would never do that to somebody. But so you
Mm.
put the hit on them and you're paying the company to do it for you.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, maybe that's kind of a dark way, like an indirect way that people that to think about it, but that's essentially what you're doing. Like, I would never put somebody through that. I would never, like, harass somebody. But you're kind of like calling up Blizzard. Yo, see that chick over there? Do it. Like, it's not. Yeah, I don't really think people think about, regardless of whether you would do it or not. You paying the money is saying, oh, it's okay for them to do it.
Exactly.
Exactly. So yeah, I know we brought up some older example, and definitely Blizzard and Activision are the newest ones, but they're not the only ones. There's probably I know there's a bazillion other examples we can pull, and we can keep this going. But I think we covered a lot of the valid points, and I think it's just a matter of questioning ourselves and really going, do I need this? Is it really worth sending the message? Even if you're sending it to nobody else, like, nobody has to know you bought the game.
True.
Although people are going to know, unless you hide, you only play offline, or you're on Xbox and you make your or a PlayStation and you make your profiles completely private so nobody can see what you're playing, and you don't add anybody on Switch. People are going to know what you're playing.
Mm.
So, but theoretically, nobody has to know. So basically, are you okay with just yourself knowing, hey, I bought this money, or I bought this game and supported a company that did this to people? Or I'm okay sending that message. If your stuff's not hidden and people see, are you okay with the message you're saying? You know what? I don't care what's going on. I just want to play a game. And I understand that's another thing. Like, some people, there's so much going on in the world that sometimes all the negative is just so overwhelming, and people try to just keep the thoughts simple on purpose, not because it's that they want to support it, but they just want to be like, I just want to have fun playing something, and that's it. I just want to stay in my own little world. But sometimes your own little world isn't as little as you think.
Mm.
I understand wanting to close in. Don't get me wrong. I hate people. I I'm not a social person. I understand that the world frustrates me to no end, and I understand wanting to stay in your own little world and not deal with it. But at the end of the day, I personally can't do it. I'm not going to be buying the game until at least I know there's some kind of announcement like, hey, it's been a few months and work has been great now. Like,
Exactly.
I,
Yeah.
I want to know that when I buy the game, somebody else isn't going to get hurt.
For
And,
sure. For
and in
sure.
general now, though, don't get me wrong. I don't expect it to be anywhere squeaky clean. There's always going to be a crappy person. There's always going to be a crappy situation. But I mean, I don't want to. I want to know that it's one person out of 100, not the 100 people out of 102. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it to be the majority of the people anymore. One is being the exception to the case, not everybody being the norm.
Honestly, um I think that at the end of the day, yeah, that really does make the difference. Like at the end of the day, if you're if you're at least saying that, like, you know, I personally don't want to patronize you um at the expense of seeing how you guys are openly sort of just letting a lot of this stuff slide. It's helpful because, one, as we've seen, um, the story wouldn't have gotten out if not for the fact that there are other people that are seeing, like, how people are being affected by it, and they're saying, like, hey, we need a legitimate change. Um, and I think that's important because at the end of the day, like you, to see other people really get involved in that, then is more the motivation to say, well, we know for a fact that there's value in actually speaking up and saying we don't want to let this slide. I get that. Yeah, I don't have a hand on necessarily being the one who's allowing this behavior to happen, but at the end of the day, if my money is being circulated um, back into the company and I know how you're mistreating your people, I'm not going to continue to allow you to do that until you actually see um, a significant change. And at the end of the day, I think we've all seen that, like, once these major companies start to realize that their wallets get affected by it, it does really light that fire uh, for them to say, okay, well, we gotta go through and start taking inventory. Otherwise, yeah, we're just gonna see the same thing happen. Or what could happen as well is we don't hear anything about it, and then we just think that, okay, well, yeah, they fixed the problem. It's like, no, we want to know that the people that are actually being um, abused and misrepresented are actually getting some sort of justice. Otherwise, like what is my money going towards? Like, is my own selfish gain of just like, oh, I just want this thing, is that more important than making sure that, like, people are legitimately being taken care of? So yeah, I think there's a there's definitely a value in making sure that we really take the time to assess how we spend our money and what our money's going towards.
Exactly. Um, no, I think that's actually a good way to just end the discussion because I think we've covered pretty much everything we need to say, and I think it's just a matter of bringing, I don't know, awareness, but just challenging everybody just to really just think about it before you decide to pre-order or purchase the game. Just or whatever the case may be, whenever another company like this or another situation like this comes up, like question yourself, do I need to do this? Do I need this product? But so yeah, I think that's a good place to leave off. I'm Card Dreamer.
I'm Demi-Human.
And until next time, everybody. Normally I would say stay evil, which is my normal sign off. But given what we're talking about, tone it down a little. Tone it down.
Just calm down just a little bit, guys. That's it.
You don't have to be a supervillain to be evil. Let's just tone it
Years. Oh man.
down. All right. Have a good one, everybody.